Chapter 1. The Last Guest. I have always hated snow. People think that's strange. Most people associate snow with warm memories. Christmas mornings, family gatherings, hot chocolate, laughter. But when I was 9 years old, my father disappeared during a snowstorm. No body, no explanation. Just an abandoned car on Highway 14 and a police report that ended with the words, missing, presumed deceased. So whenever snow falls, I feel something I cannot explain. Not fear. Something deeper. The feeling that the world becomes quieter, as if it is waiting. And that was exactly how I felt when I first saw Blackwood Grand Hotel. The storm had already swallowed the mountains behind me. My rental car struggled against the icy road as enormous snowflakes crashed against the windshield. The GPS died 20 miles earlier. No signal, no internet, no radio, nothing. Just white, an endless ocean of white. Then, through the storm, the hotel appeared. Tall, dark, ancient. 5 stories of black stone and faded elegance. Its golden sign flickered weakly above the entrance. Blackwood, Grand, Hotel, Est. 1952. For a brief moment I considered turning around. Going home. Abandoning the entire story. Because something about the building felt wrong. Not haunted. Not evil. Just lonely. Like an old person waiting for visitors that never came. I parked near the entrance. The wind screamed outside. The temperature had already dropped below freezing, and according to every weather forecast I had checked before losing signal, the storm wasn't stopping anytime soon. Perfect. Exactly the kind of situation every responsible investigative journalist should avoid. Yet there I was, dragging my suitcase through knee-deep snow, because I needed this story. My podcast had been dying for months. Downloads were falling. Sponsors were leaving. People wanted true crime, disappearances, conspiracies, mysteries. And Blackwood Grand Hotel had all 3. Over the last 70 years, 11 people had vanished there. No bodies, no arrests, no explanations. The hotel would permanently close in 2 weeks. Developers planned to demolish it by spring. Meaning, this was my final chance to investigate. One last story, one last attempt to save my career. I pushed open the heavy wooden doors. Warm air hit my face immediately. And silence. The kind of silence that exists in libraries and churches. Soft, respectful, ancient. The lobby looked frozen in time. Crystal chandeliers, dark wooden walls, red carpets, vintage clocks. Everything looked expensive and old, very old. Behind the reception desk sat an elderly woman. She didn't move when I entered. She simply looked up from her book, as though she had been expecting me. "Miss Hayes," she said. I stopped. My suitcase wheels squeaked against the floor. "How do you know my name?" The woman smiled politely. "You're our last guest." Her voice was calm, elegant, carefully measured. "Margaret Holloway," she continued. "Owner and caretaker." I approached the desk, still unsettled. I had a reservation. Of course. She already held my room key. No computer, no checking, no confirmation. Just the key. Waiting. "Room 214. Long drive?" she asked. The storm made things difficult. "You could say that." I laughed nervously. "Honestly, I'm surprised the hotel is still operating." Margaret closed her book. Old places are stubborn. Something about that answer lingered. I signed the registry. Only 6 names appeared on the page. Mine included. 6 guests. That was all. In a hotel with over 100 rooms. The realization made the building feel even larger. And somehow, even emptier. I looked around. "Are the other guests here?" Margaret nodded. "Most of them." "Most?" "One hasn't arrived." The clock behind her ticked loudly. Tick, tick, tick. I frowned. In this weather? He always arrives. The way she said it bothered me. Not hopeful, certain, as though the storm itself was irrelevant. I decided not to ask. Instead, I pulled out my recorder. Professional habit. Mind if I ask a few questions? Margaret's smile faded. No interviews tonight. Tomorrow. Why not? The old woman looked toward the massive windows. Snow hammered against the glass. The world outside had disappeared entirely, and she said something so quietly I almost missed it. People should settle in before dark. A strange answer, but I was exhausted. 12 hours of driving, no sleep, too much coffee. I accepted the key. Elevator? Broken. Of course. The stairs are to your left. I grabbed my suitcase, then stopped. By the way, Margaret looked up. How many rooms are on the 3rd floor? Silence. Her expression changed. Only slightly, but enough. There is no 3rd floor. I blinked. What? The building has 5 stories. Yes, she nodded. 1, 2, 4, 5. I stared at her, waiting for a joke. None came. That's impossible. Old architecture. She reopened her book. Conversation over. I laughed awkwardly. Right. But as I walked away, I couldn't stop thinking about it. No 3rd floor. Ridiculous. Maybe some weird numbering tradition. Or maybe she was simply eccentric. Old hotels attract eccentric people. That's what I told myself. What I didn't realise was that I would spend the next 10 days wishing I had left immediately. The staircase groaned beneath every step. Dark wooden railings, faded wallpaper, portraits of strangers watching from the walls. I hated portraits, especially old ones. People in old photographs never smile naturally. They stare, like they're trying to remember something. Room 214 sat near the end of a long hallway. The corridor stretched endlessly in both directions. Soft yellow lights flickered overhead. The carpet muffled every sound. No televisions, no conversations, nothing. Just silence. I unlocked the door. The room itself surprised me. Beautiful. Vintage furniture, a fireplace, large windows overlooking the mountains, a record player, even a typewriter. No television, no modern decorations. As though time had stopped somewhere around 1965, I placed my equipment on the desk. Microphones, recorder, laptop. No signal. Naturally, the storm had worsened. Outside, the world looked unreal. White, infinite, alone. I checked the time. 7:42 p.m. Still early. Maybe I could meet the other guests, get introductions, collect stories, build trust. Content. Always content. I grabbed my coat and returned downstairs. The dining hall occupied most of the 1st floor. Only 4 people sat inside. A man in his 30s reading a paperback novel, an elderly couple quietly eating soup, and a young woman near the fireplace. Nobody spoke. Nobody used phones. Nobody looked particularly interested in one another. The atmosphere felt wrong. Not hostile, just distant, as if everyone had arrived separately and intended to remain that way. The man with the novel looked up first. Blue eyes, dark hair, calm expression. New arrival? His voice was friendly. I smiled. Eleanor Hayes. Adrian Cole. We shook hands. His grip was firm, steady, the kind of grip police officers have, or soldiers. Something disciplined. I know your podcast, he said. That surprised me. You do? He nodded. The hollow files. Used to listen during long drives. Used to. That hurt more than I wanted to admit. I forced a smile. Well, hopefully this episode changes things. Adrian closed his book. You came for the disappearances. Not a question. A statement. I sat across from him. That's the idea. The elderly couple suddenly stood, without finishing their meal, without saying a word. They left. Together. Slowly, I watched them disappear into the hallway. Strange, Adrian noticed. People don't stay long in the dining hall. Why? He looked toward the windows. Snow battered the glass. Night comes early here. Again. Another strange answer. I laughed. Everyone talks like they're in a horror movie. Adrian smiled, but only with his mouth, not his eyes. Maybe that's why you're here. Before I could respond, a young woman approached our table, short black hair, large coat, nervous smile. She looked younger than me, 24 maybe. Mind if I sit? Of course, I said. She sat immediately, too quickly, as though she had been waiting for permission. Sophie Bennett, she introduced herself. Eleanor. Adrian. She looked relieved. I'm glad more people arrived. Her fingers wrapped tightly around her coffee mug. I don't like being alone in places like this. I smiled. Vacation? She hesitated. No, I'm waiting for someone. Adrian glanced at her. Family. Silence. Sophie stared into her coffee, then shook her head. Just someone important. The conversation died after that. Nobody pushed. Nobody asked. And somehow, I got the feeling everyone in the hotel had secrets, including me, especially me. Around 10 o'clock, I returned to my room. The storm had become violent. Wind screamed against the mountains. The windows rattled. The building groaned. I sat beside the fireplace, recorder in hand, and began my introduction. Episode 37. The last days of Blackwood Grand Hotel. My voice echoed softly. Tonight, I arrived at one of Oregon's oldest and most mysterious establishments. 12 disappearances, 70 years, no explanations, and only 6 guests remain inside. I paused, thinking, then added, and for some reason, I looked toward the ceiling. The owner insists there is no 3rd floor. I laughed, stopped recording, and played it back. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The final sentence. The part about the 3rd floor wasn't there. The recording ended early. Static. Then silence. I frowned. Maybe a malfunction. Cheap equipment, cold weather. I started another recording. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Blackwood Hotel has no 3rd floor. I stopped. Played it back. The same thing happened. Everything recorded perfectly, except those words. Silence. Static. Nothing. My heartbeat slowed. No, there had to be an explanation. Electromagnetic interference. Old wiring. Coincidence. That's all. I closed the recorder and laughed at myself. Too many ghost stories. Too little sleep. I needed rest. Tomorrow would be better. Tomorrow would make sense. I changed into pyjamas, locked the door, turned off the lights, and climbed into bed. The storm continued outside. The hotel settled around me. Wood expanding, pipes groaning. Ancient buildings always make noise, normal noise, comforting noise. I closed my eyes and almost fell asleep. Then, footsteps, above me, slow, measured. Someone walking, back and forth, back and forth. I opened my eyes. Room 214, 2nd floor. The floor above me should be... I sat upright. No. That was ridiculous. The hotel had 5 stories. Of course there was a floor above me. Room 314. Simple. Easy. Perfectly logical. Yet, Margaret's voice returned, there is no 3rd floor. The footsteps continued, heavy, deliberate. One direction, pause, then back again, as though someone was pacing, waiting. The clock beside my bed read, 2:17 a.m. Exactly. The footsteps stopped. Complete silence. I exhaled, relieved. And then a woman began crying, softly, directly above my ceiling. Not screaming, not sobbing, just crying. The kind of crying that comes after hope has already disappeared. My entire body went cold. I listened, unable to move, unable to breathe, and through the storm, through the walls, through the darkness, I heard her whisper, "Eleanor." Silence. Then again, softer, closer. "Eleanor." My blood turned to ice, because I had never told anyone in the hotel my first name. Only Eleanor Hayes. Only Miss Hayes. Nobody had called me Eleanor. Nobody. Except my father. 20 years ago. And the voice above me sounded exactly like someone who had been waiting a very long time to speak. Chapter 2. Footsteps above my ceiling. I didn't sleep. Not after hearing my name. Not after hearing that voice. And definitely not after realising something that made my stomach turn. Nobody at Blackwood had called me Eleanor. I always introduced myself as Ellie. The podcast, the articles, the interviews. Everyone knew me as Ellie Hayes. Only my father called me Eleanor. And he had been gone for 20 years. The crying stopped shortly after. The footsteps never returned. Yet I remained awake until sunrise, watching the ceiling, waiting, listening, praying for a rational explanation. I found none. At 6:43 a.m, exhaustion finally won. I closed my eyes and dreamed. I was standing in a hotel corridor. The wallpaper was different, brighter, new. The carpets looked untouched. Music played somewhere far away. A piano, soft jazz. People laughed. The hotel was alive. Then I saw her, a young woman, long dark hair, white dress, standing at the end of the hallway, her back turned toward me, completely still. I called out, "Excuse me?" No response. The music stopped. The lights flickered. And suddenly, she spoke, without turning around. "You're late." My heart pounded. "What?" "You promised you'd come back." The corridor darkened. Every door around me slowly opened, one after another. Inside each room, darkness. Nothing else. Just darkness. The woman finally turned, and I nearly screamed, because she had my face. Not similar. Not close. My face. Same eyes. Same hair colour. Same expression. Only older. Exhausted. As though she hadn't slept in years. And she smiled. A sad smile. "The room is waiting." The hallway trembled. Door numbers changed. And finally, the woman raised her hand, pointing toward it. "Please," she whispered, "don't leave me alone again." I woke up screaming. Morning light spilled through the windows. My heart hammered against my ribs. The clock read 8:12 a.m. Sweat soaked my shirt. Outside, the storm hadn't stopped. If anything, it looked worse. The mountains had completely vanished beneath endless white. I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to steady my breathing. It was only a dream. That's all. A nightmare. New place. No sleep. Too much caffeine. Simple. Reasonable. Normal. Then I noticed something strange. The recorder sat on my desk, exactly where I left it, except it was on. The red light blinked slowly. Recording. I was certain I had turned it off. My stomach tightened. I walked toward it carefully and pressed play. Static. Several seconds. Then footsteps. Heavy. Slow. Back and forth. Above my room. I froze. No. No! The recorder had captured them. Every single step. I listened in silence. Back and forth. Back and forth. Then the crying began. Soft. Broken. Human. Tears formed in my eyes without explanation. There was something devastating about that sound. Not fear. Not pain. Loneliness. Pure loneliness. Then a voice. Clear. Undeniable. "Eleanor!" I stopped breathing. The recording continued. Silence. And then another voice. A man's voice. Calm. Older. Not yet. The crying stopped immediately. The footsteps vanished. The recording ended. I stared at the device. My hands trembled. Who was that? Who said that? And why did the words sound less like a threat and more like a warning? Breakfast began at 9. The dining hall looked exactly the same. Quiet, almost unnaturally quiet. Margaret stood behind the reception desk reading her book. She hadn't moved. Or perhaps she simply returned to the same position every morning. I couldn't tell. Adrian sat alone near the fireplace. Coffee. Same novel. Same page. Or so it seemed. When he noticed me approaching, he smiled politely. Rough night? I stopped. What makes you say that? You look exhausted. Fair point. I sat across from him. Did you hear anything last night? His fingers stopped turning pages. Anything specific? Footsteps. A pause. Maybe. Above my room. Silence. Adrian closed his book. Very carefully. Old buildings make noise. People cry in old buildings too. That caught his attention. His expression changed. Only slightly. But enough. Did someone cry? I stared at him. You didn't hear it. No. His answer came too quickly. Too clean. I didn't believe him. Before I could ask another question, Sophie entered the dining hall. She looked terrible. Pale. Dark circles beneath her eyes. She held a cup of tea with both hands, as though trying to stop herself from shaking. Morning, I said. She forced a smile. Morning. Adrian nodded. Nobody spoke for several seconds. Then Sophie whispered, Did either of you sleep? I looked at her immediately. Not really. Her eyes met mine. Fear. Real fear. What happened? I asked. She hesitated, then leaned closer. I heard someone walking. My heart beat quick. Where? She swallowed. Above me. Adrian remained silent, watching us, listening. Sophie continued. My room is 218. I froze. Room 218. Same floor. Same problem. There shouldn't be anybody above us, I said. She nodded slowly. I know. Adrian stood. Too abruptly. People hear strange things during storms. Sophie looked at him. What about crying? Silence. The entire dining hall seemed to stop breathing. Adrian didn't answer. Instead, he looked toward Margaret. The old woman remained behind the desk, reading, as though none of this concerned her. And somehow, that bothered me most of all. And an hour later, I decided to investigate. Journalists investigate. That's what we do. We don't hide. We don't ignore evidence. We ask questions. The hotel map hung near the lobby. Framed. Elegant. Outdated. I approached it carefully. 5 floors. Clearly labelled. 1st floor. 2nd floor. 4th floor. 5th floor. I blinked. No 3rd floor. No mistake. No printing error. Nothing. The number simply skipped. My mouth went dry. Behind me, a voice. Looking for something? Margaret. I turned. Why is there no 3rd floor? The old woman closed her book. For the first time since arriving, she looked genuinely tired. Because there isn't. That makes no sense. It doesn't have to. I laughed nervously. Buildings don't just skip floors. She looked directly into my eyes. Some places choose to forget certain things. The air felt colder. What does that mean? No answer. Instead, she asked, Did you sleep well? The question made my skin crawl. I hesitated. Then, No. Margaret nodded. As expected. My heart skipped. As expected. She turned away, returning to her desk. The storm will continue for several days. Stay with the others after sunset. What? Don't wander alone. The hairs on my arm stood. Why? Silence. Finally, without looking at me, she spoke. If you hear footsteps above your room tonight. My breathing stopped. Do not follow them. The lobby became utterly silent. No clock. No wind. Nothing. Just her words. I managed to whisper. Who is in room 307? Margaret froze. For several seconds, she didn't move. Then she slowly looked back at me, and for the first time, her calm expression vanished. Fear. Genuine fear. Who told you that number? My blood turned cold. I hadn't actually known. Not consciously. The number simply came out, as though I already knew it, as though the dream remembered something I didn't. Margaret gripped the edge of her desk. You must never say that room number again. The entire building groaned, deep, ancient, like something settling far below us. And somewhere, very far away, a woman began crying. Again. Margaret closed her eyes. Too late. She whispered it so softly I almost missed it. She knows you're here now. I couldn't move. Who? The old woman opened her eyes, and for the first time since arriving at Blackwood Grand Hotel, she looked at me with pity. The girl in room 307. That night, I promised myself I would stay in my room, lock the door, ignore the sounds, wait for morning. I truly intended to, but at exactly 2:17 a.m, the footsteps returned, and this time, they weren't above my ceiling. They were outside my door. Chapter 3. The woman in the photograph. The footsteps stopped exactly when I reached for the doorknob. Silence. Complete and absolute. I sat frozen on the edge of my bed. The digital clock beside me glowed faintly. 2:17 a.m. The same time. The same impossible time. My breathing was shallow, slow, careful. Maybe whoever walked past my room had already gone downstairs. Maybe another guest couldn't sleep. Maybe... Knock. 3 soft knocks, directly against my door. Not aggressive, not desperate, gentle, patient. I stopped breathing. Nobody spoke. No explanation. No voice. Only silence. Then, a woman whispered, "Eleanor!" I covered my mouth. The sound came from the hallway, just inches away. "Please." Tears filled my eyes for reasons I couldn't explain. There was something familiar about her voice. Not recognisable, not remembered. Familiar in the way forgotten dreams are familiar. The kind of memory that exists somewhere beyond reach. I remained perfectly still. Another knock. Lighter this time. Then footsteps. Slowly moving away. One step. Another. And another. Until silence returned. I didn't move for the rest of the night. Morning arrived without sunlight. The storm had swallowed everything. The world outside my window was nothing but white. No mountains. No roads. No signs of civilization. Blackwood might as well have existed on another planet. I joined the others for breakfast. The atmosphere had changed. Sophie looked exhausted. Margaret was quieter than before. And Adrian kept glancing toward the staircase, as though waiting for someone, or hoping someone wouldn't arrive. I poured coffee into my cup. "Did anyone walk around last night?" Nobody answered. I tried again. I heard someone outside my room. Silence. The elderly couple exchanged nervous looks. Margaret continued reading. Adrian stirred his coffee. Finally, Sophie spoke. I heard knocking. My eyes met hers immediately. "When?" She swallowed. 2:17. The spoon slipped from my fingers. Clink. Nobody reacted, as if that time meant something everyone already understood. Except me. I forced a laugh. "Okay. Seriously, what's going on here?" Adrian looked up. Nothing. People hear strange things during storms. I leaned forward. "And what about voices?" His expression hardened. "What voices?" A woman. Saying my name. The dining hall became still. Even Margaret stopped turning pages. Sophie stared at her cup. The old couple stood, without finishing breakfast, without a word. They simply left. I watched them disappear. What the hell is wrong with everyone? Margaret closed her book. The roads are closed. I blinked. What? The sheriff called an hour ago. The mountain pass collapsed. My stomach sank. How long? No idea. The storm continued outside, relentless, ancient, patient. I suddenly understood something horrifying. We weren't leaving. Not today. Maybe not tomorrow. Blackwood had become an island, and we were trapped inside it. I needed answers. Real answers. Not cryptic warnings. Not strange smiles. Answers. So after breakfast, I began exploring. The hotel library occupied most of the west wing. Dust covered nearly every shelf. Thousands of books. Old newspapers. Boxes. Records. History. Exactly what I needed. The air smelled like paper and cedar wood. I loved places like this. Quiet. Honest. Memories preserved instead of forgotten. I searched for anything connected to disappearances. Anything involving room 307. Nothing. No references. No floor plans. No guest records. It was as though the number itself had been erased. Deliberately. Hours passed. Outside, the storm worsened. The windows trembled beneath the wind. Then, I found something. An old photo album. Blackwood Grand Hotel Grand. Reopening ceremony. Dozens of smiling faces. Employees. Guests. Musicians. Children. I flipped through the pages carefully until one photograph made my blood run cold. A group picture. 7 women standing in front of the hotel entrance, all wearing winter coats, all smiling, and one of them looked exactly like me. I dropped the album. The sound echoed through the library. No, no, impossible. The photograph had clearly been taken decades before I was born. Yet there she was. My eyes, my face, my hair, everything. Only her clothes were different. 1950s fashion. But the resemblance wasn't close. It was perfect. My hands trembled as I picked the photograph up again. On the back, someone had written names. Margaret Holloway, Helen Price, Rose Mercer, Vivian Cole, Elizabeth Turner, Anna White, and Eleanor Blackwood. My heart stopped. Eleanor. Not Ellie, not Hayes. Eleanor. The same name. A chill spread through my body. Then I noticed something else. One name had been crossed out. Violently, repeatedly, almost scratched through the paper itself. Eleanor Blackwood. Underneath, written in different handwriting. Do not open room 307. I stumbled backward. The library suddenly felt smaller. The air heavier. Someone knew. Someone had known for decades. And they had tried to erase her. Erase everything. Footsteps echoed behind me. I turned immediately. Adrian stood near the doorway. Hands in his coat pockets. Expression unreadable. I nearly screamed. Jesus! He didn't apologise. Instead, his eyes moved toward the photograph, and his face lost all colour. Where did you find that? I held it tighter. In the archives. Silence. A long silence. Then, put it back. What? Put it back. His voice was colder now. Different. I stared at him. Who is Eleanor Blackwood? No answer. Why does she look exactly like me? Nothing. Adrian. He stepped forward. Slowly. The storm will last several more days. That photograph isn't important. I laughed. Are you serious? It has my face on it. It isn't your face. Then whose face is it? His jaw tightened. And finally, very quietly, he said, someone who should have stayed forgotten. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. I took another step backward. Do you know about room 307? Silence. Adrian closed his eyes. For several seconds, he said nothing. Then, Ellie. The way he said my nickname felt strangely intentional, carefully chosen, as if refusing to use another name. Don't go looking for that room. My pulse quickened. So it exists. No. Then why are you afraid of it? He'd looked away. Because he was afraid. Actually afraid. And that terrified me more than anything. A loud crack echoed outside. Thunder. Or something else. The entire hotel shook. Books fell from shelves. The lights flickered. Then darkness. Complete darkness. My breathing accelerated. A second later, emergency lights activated. Red. Dim. Unnatural. The library transformed into something entirely different. Adrian grabbed the photograph from my hands. Too quickly. What are you doing? He opened the album, shoved the picture back inside, and closed it. Hard. We're leaving. What? Now. Another sound echoed through the hotel. Not thunder. Footsteps. Heavy. Measured. Directly above us. The impossible footsteps. But the library occupied the first floor, which meant whoever walked above us was walking on the second floor, toward the staircase. Toward... Adrian's face turned white. No. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then a woman began singing, softly, a lullaby. Ancient, beautiful, heartbreaking, and every light in the library went out again. The emergency lights died. The world disappeared. Darkness swallowed everything. I heard Adrian whisper, "Please don't let her find us." And then someone spoke directly beside my ear. A woman's voice. Gentle, lonely, waiting. "Eleanor." I couldn't move. "Why did you come back?" Chapter 4. Nobody leaves. During the storm, I couldn't move. The woman's voice had come from directly beside me, so close that I felt her breath against my ear. Cold, gentle, human. Eleanor. The darkness around us swallowed everything. No library, no books, no Adrian, nothing. Only that voice and my own heartbeat. Fast, violent, uncontrollable. Then the emergency lights flickered back to life. Red. Weak. I spun around. Nobody. The space beside me was empty. Adrian stood several feet away, frozen in place. His face had lost all colour. He looked terrified. Not surprised. Terrified. As though he already knew exactly what had happened. "You heard that." It wasn't a question. He slowly nodded. My mouth felt dry. "Who is she?" Silence. "Adrian." He looked at the floor. "I don't know." I laughed. A short, humourless laugh. "That's a lie." "No! Everybody in this hotel knows something." He clenched his jaw. "And everybody in this hotel survives by not talking about it." The building groaned. Deep. Ancient. The sound travelled through the walls like a living thing. Then the lullaby returned. Faint. Far away. Somewhere above us. My skin crawled. Adrian immediately grabbed my arm. "We're leaving." I pulled away. "No. Ellie. No." I pointed upward. "Someone is up there." His expression hardened. "There is nobody upstairs." The footsteps. Nobody. The singing. Nobody. His voice was too loud, too desperate. And for the first time since arriving at Blackwood, I understood something. Adrian wasn't trying to hide the truth. He was trying to survive it. The storm worsened throughout the afternoon. Snow buried the first floor windows. The front entrance had completely disappeared beneath white drifts. Margaret received another phone call around 3 o'clock. The only landline in the building. The only connection to the outside world. When she hung up, her face looked older. Tired. Defeated. I approached the desk. "Any news?" She folded her hands together. "The Eastern Bridge collapsed." My stomach dropped. "The only road?" She nodded. "No vehicles will reach us for several days." Several days. The words echoed inside my head. I forced a smile. "Helicopters." "The storm is too severe." Emergency services? Nothing. Margaret simply looked past me, toward the windows. We'll have to wait. A terrible realisation settled over everyone. We weren't visitors anymore. We were trapped. Dinner that evening felt different. The elderly couple didn't appear. Their seat remained empty. Margaret said nothing about it. Nobody asked. The silence itself became another guest at the table. Sophie sat beside me, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea, still shaking. "I didn't sleep," she whispered. "Me neither." She glanced around, making sure nobody listened, then leaned closer. "I heard someone crying in the hallway." My pulse quickened. When? 2:17. Again. Always the same time. I swallowed. "Did you open the door?" She immediately shook her head. "No." Her voice cracked. "I wanted to." "Why?" Tears appeared in her eyes. Because she sounded so alone. The answer disturbed me more than fear ever could. Loneliness. Everyone described loneliness. Not terror, not rage, not violence. Just a woman who didn't want to be alone. Adrian entered the dining room, late, his coat covered in snow. I frowned. "Where were you?" He stopped, too suddenly. "Outside." I laughed. "In this weather?" I needed air. Nobody believed him, not even himself. He sat down, avoiding eye contact. And then I noticed something. Mud. Fresh mud on his boots. Not snow. Mud. Dark brown. Wet. As though he'd been somewhere underground. The realisation sat heavily in my stomach. Before I could ask, the elderly man finally entered the dining hall. Alone. My eyes widened. "Where's your wife?" Silence. The old man looked confused. "My wife?" The entire room became still. Sophie slowly lowered her cup. Margaret closed her eyes. Adrian stopped breathing. I stared. "The woman you were with." "At breakfast." "Yesterday." The old man blinked, then smiled politely. "I came here alone." A cold wave washed over me. "No, that's impossible." He chuckled softly. "I think I'd remember if I brought someone with me." The chair across from him remained empty. Completely empty. Yet I remembered her. Grey coat, silver necklace, kind eyes. She existed. She had to exist. I looked at Sophie. She looked terrified. Because she remembered too. I could see it. She remembered the woman. But she said nothing. Nobody did. Margaret stood. "Dinner is over." The old man looked confused. "But I just arrived." No one answered him. That night, I locked my door. Twice. I moved a chair beneath the handle. Ridiculous. Childish. But necessary. The photograph of Eleanor Blackwood sat on my desk. I couldn't stop looking at it. My face, her name, and those words written on the back. "Do not open room 307. Who wrote them? Why? And why did I feel like I already knew the answer? The clock ticked. The storm screamed outside. I checked the time. 2:14 a.m. 3 minutes. I told myself I wouldn't listen, wouldn't wait, wouldn't care. 2:15. Silence. 2:16. Nothing. 2:17. The footsteps began. Not above me. Not outside my door. Inside the walls. My entire body froze. Slow. Measured. Walking somewhere between the plaster and the darkness beyond. Impossible. Yet unmistakable. One step. Another. Another. They moved toward the far side of my room. Toward the mirror. And then stopped. I stared at my reflection. Pale face. Messy hair. Exhausted eyes. Nothing unusual. Until someone appeared behind me. I spun around. Nobody. The room was empty. My breathing became frantic. I looked back at the mirror, and there she was, the woman from the photograph, standing directly behind me, wearing a dark winter coat, snow covering her shoulders, water dripping onto the floor. She looked exactly like me, only older, sadder, and she wasn't smiling. She raised one finger, slowly, pointing upward. Then she mouthed 3 words. Find. The key. The mirror shattered. Glass exploded across the room. I fell backward. Screaming! The lights died instantly. Darkness. Absolute darkness. And from somewhere deep inside the hotel, a man screamed. Not fear. Not pain. Pure terror. It lasted only a second. Then silence. The kind of silence that follows something irreversible. I grabbed my flashlight and ran into the hallway. Doors opened. Guests emerged. Sophie crying. Adrian already running. Margaret walking calmly. Too calmly. We followed the sound downstairs. Toward the lobby. Toward the front entrance. And there, lying in the snow that had somehow blown inside, was the old man's suitcase. Open, abandoned. The old man himself was gone. Completely gone. No footprints. No blood. No signs of struggle. Nothing. One moment he existed. The next, he didn't. Margaret stared at the empty doorway, her expression unreadable. Then she quietly said, "Nobody leaves during the storm." No one spoke. No one moved, because we all understood what she truly meant. He hadn't left Blackwood. Blackwood had taken him. Chapter 5. The tape recorder. Nobody slept after the old man disappeared. Nobody even tried. The lobby became our sanctuary, or perhaps our prison. Margaret lit candles despite the emergency generators still functioning. She claimed the electricity was unstable. I wasn't sure I believed her. The truth was becoming increasingly obvious. Nothing in Blackwood operated according to normal rules. Not the architecture, not the people, and certainly not the nights. The snow outside continued relentlessly, white, infinite, unforgiving. I sat beside the fireplace, clutching a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. Across from me, Sophie wrapped herself in a blanket. Her eyes remained fixed on the front doors, as if expecting the old man to return, or afraid that he would. Adrian stood near the windows, silent, watching the storm. Margaret remained behind the reception desk, reading, always reading, the same book, the same page. I had never once seen her turn it. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I stood. Enough. Nobody reacted. I raised my voice. Enough. Adrian turned. Margaret looked up. Sophie flinched. I pointed toward the entrance. A man disappeared. Silence. An actual human being disappeared. Nothing. And none of you seemed surprised. The fire crackled. Outside, the wind screamed. Margaret closed her book. Slowly. People disappear in Blackwood. My blood boiled. What does that even mean? It means what it means. No. I stepped closer. You don't get to say cryptic things anymore. Someone is missing. Someone was crying in the hallways. There are footsteps on a floor that supposedly doesn't exist. I slammed both hands onto the reception desk, and I want answers. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Sophie whispered, "I remember his wife." The room froze. Adrian closed his eyes. Margaret said nothing. Sophie looked at me, tears forming. I remember her. Relief flooded through me. Oh my God. Thank you. I'm not crazy. Sophie shook her head. They arrived together. They ate together. They talked. Her breathing quickened. But now... She looked around. Now I can't remember her face. The realization struck me immediately. I remembered a woman. I knew she existed. But her face, her voice, even her clothing, the details were fading, as though someone was erasing her from memory, piece by piece. I sat down, suddenly exhausted. Adrian finally spoke. It starts that way. The silence that followed felt enormous. I looked up. What starts that way? He hesitated. Then, people disappear. And afterward, his voice became quieter. We stopped remembering them. The words chilled me. No, he nodded. At first, only details vanish. Then names. Then faces. And eventually, he looked toward the snow outside. It's as though they never existed. Sophie began crying. I don't want to forget. Neither did I. Because forgetting someone felt worse than death. Death leaves grief, memory, love. But being forgotten, being erased, that was something far crueler. The next morning, I made a decision. If nobody wanted to tell me the truth, I would find it myself. The hotel archives hadn't given me enough, so I started searching places guests weren't supposed to enter, storage rooms, maintenance corridors, locked offices. Anywhere hidden. Adrian noticed immediately. You're going looking again. I zipped up my coat. Someone has to. Ellie. No. I faced him. You know things. You won't talk. So I'll find answers myself. He stared at me for a long moment, then sighed, and reached into his pocket. My pulse quickened. He placed an old brass key into my hand. Heavy, cold, worn by decades of use, no number attached, just a single engraving. B. What is this? The basement archive. I blinked. There's another archive? He nodded. Staff records, maintenance logs, personal belongings. Things that were never meant for guests. My heartbeat accelerated. Why are you giving this to me? He looked away. Because I think she's already chosen you. The sentence landed like ice water. Who? But he was already walking away. The basement stairs were hidden behind the kitchen, narrow, steep, ancient. The further I descended, the colder the air became. Concrete walls replaced wallpaper. Old pipes groaned overhead. The hotel seemed older down there, as though time itself behaved differently underground. The key fit perfectly. The heavy metal door creaked open, dust filled the air, rows upon rows of shelves, boxes, documents, forgotten things. My flashlight illuminated decades of history, employee uniforms, guest books, suitcases with faded tags, and at the far end, a table. Upon it sat a tape recorder, reel-to-reel, old, very old. Beside it, a handwritten note, property of Eleanor Blackwood. My heart stopped. No. Slowly I approached. The machine shouldn't have worked. It looked ancient. Yet when I touched it, the reels began spinning by themselves. Static filled the room. Then a woman's voice, clear, calm, familiar. Recording number 7. The air left my lungs. It was my voice, not similar, not close. Exactly my voice. I staggered backward. Impossible. The recording continued. My name is Eleanor Blackwood. I don't know how much time I have left. Silence. Soft breathing. And then, if anyone finds that... The voice trembled. Please do not listen to Margaret. My blood froze. Upstairs. Something heavy moved. I looked toward the ceiling. The recording continued. She isn't protecting us. She's protecting the room. The tape crackled violently. Then a man's voice interrupted. Turn that off. I recognised it instantly. Adrian. No, not Adrian. Someone who sounded exactly like him. Older, exhausted. The woman answered, No. We need evidence. The man sighed. They'll hear you. Good. The silence that followed felt unbearable. Then Eleanor whispered, There is no 3rd floor. The lights above me exploded. Darkness swallowed the basement. I screamed. The tape kept playing, unaffected, and through the static I heard crying, the same woman, the same loneliness, except now I understood something horrifying. The crying wasn't coming from the tape. It was coming from somewhere deeper, beneath the basement, beneath Blackwood itself. And then Eleanor spoke again, her voice barely audible. If you're hearing this, that means room 307 has found you. The crying stopped, complete silence. Then, a knock, 3 slow knocks from behind me. I turned. The metal door was closed. I was alone, completely alone. Knock, knock, knock. My flashlight flickered, and a woman whispered from the other side of the door, "Eleanor." A pause. Then, "Please let me in." My hands trembled, because this time, the voice wasn't calling me. The voice believed I already was her. Chapter 6. Adrian is lying. The knocking stopped. Silence returned to the basement, but the silence felt wrong, heavy, occupied, as though something stood on the other side of the metal door, waiting, listening. I didn't move. My flashlight trembled in my hand. The tape recorder continued spinning. Soft static filled the room. Then Eleanor's voice returned, quieter this time, more desperate. "If you're listening to this, then I failed." My breathing slowed. Every instinct told me to leave. Run upstairs, stay with the others, forget everything. But another part of me, the journalist, the investigator, the stupid, curious part of me, needed answers. I stepped closer to the recorder. The tape crackled. "People think room 307 is a room." A pause. "It isn't." The air in the basement suddenly felt colder. "It's a place between memories." My stomach tightened. "And once it knows your name." Silence. Then a whisper. "It waits." The recording ended. The reels stopped moving. The basement became utterly quiet. No crying, no footsteps, nothing. Just me, and the realisation that someone named Eleanor Blackwood had sounded exactly like me. I swallowed, then turned toward the metal door. Slowly, carefully, I reached for the handle and froze. Fresh scratches covered the surface. Long, vertical, as if fingernails had dragged across the steel. Hundreds of them. I was certain they hadn't been there before. My flashlight illuminated something else. Words written into the rust. Barely visible. "Help me remember." I stumbled backward. No, no, no. The temperature dropped further, and somewhere beneath my feet, I heard movement. Not footsteps. Breathing. Deep, slow, human. Coming from below the concrete floor. I ran. By the time I reached the kitchen, I could barely breathe. My heart pounded against my ribs. The warmth of the hotel felt artificial, wrong, as though Blackwood wanted to pretend everything was normal. The dining room stood empty. No Sophie, no Margaret, no elderly guests, nobody, only Adrian, sitting alone, reading his book, the same page, exactly as before. He looked up and immediately knew. His expression changed. "You went downstairs." Not a question, a statement. I stared at him. "You lied to me." Silence. I heard the tape. Nothing. Eleanor Blackwood existed. He slowly closed the book. "I know." My anger exploded. "Then why the hell are you pretending otherwise?" He stood, calm, too calm. "You shouldn't have listened to it." I laughed. A sharp, bitter laugh. "That's your concern? A woman disappeared. People are forgetting her. Someone called my name in the middle of the night. And you're worried about a tape recorder." His jaw tightened. "Ellie." "No." I pointed at him. "Who are you?" The question hung between us. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then Adrian looked toward the fireplace, toward the dying flames, and quietly said, "My father worked here. The world seemed to stop." "What?" "He was head of security." My anger faded, only slightly. "He disappeared when I was 16. Silence. "I came back every winter, every year, trying to understand what happened." He laughed softly, without humour. "And every year," his voice cracked, "I forget a little more." My pulse slowed. No, that wasn't possible. Was it? Adrian continued. I keep journals, photographs, recordings, because memory doesn't survive here. I remembered the old man's wife, the details already slipping away. The terror returned. You knew about that? He nodded. I know what Blackwood does. The room felt smaller. And yet you stay? His eyes met mine, filled with exhaustion, because my father is still here. The fire popped. Sparks drifted upward. I hear him sometimes. My throat tightened. What do you mean? Footsteps. A long pause. On the 3rd floor. Silence. The impossible words settled over us. The 3rd floor. The floor that didn't exist. I sat down slowly. No, Adrian nodded. I spent years trying to find it. And his expression darkened. You don't find room 307. A pause. It finds you. My blood turned cold. The exact same thing Eleanor said. I realised something horrifying. The tape, Adrian, the disappearances, they all shared the same language, the same warnings, as though everyone who survived Blackwood eventually learned the same terrible truth. And none of them escaped. That evening, Sophie didn't come to dinner. Margaret claimed she wasn't feeling well, but something about her tone bothered me. Too rehearsed, too careful. I decided to check on her. Room 218. The hallway remained unnaturally quiet. My footsteps echoed softly. I knocked. No answer. Again. Nothing. A terrible feeling settled into my stomach. I tried the handle. Unlocked. The door opened. The room was empty, cold, untouched. The bed remained perfectly made. No luggage, no clothes, no teacups, nothing, as though nobody had ever stayed there. I stopped breathing. No, 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 Sophie was here. She had breakfast with us. She cried. She spoke. She remembered the old man's wife. She existed, didn't she? Panic flooded my chest. I ran downstairs. Adrian stood in the lobby. The moment he saw my face, he knew. Where's Sophie? Silence. Adrian! He closed his eyes. Oh, God! Where is she? Margaret slowly looked up from her book, her expression filled with sadness. I'm afraid Miss Bennet checked out this morning. I stared at her. What? She left before dawn. The lie was so outrageous that I almost laughed. No. Margaret folded her hands. Yes. That's impossible. The roads are closed. Silence. Nobody answered, because nobody could. The roads were buried beneath snow. No vehicles, no rescue teams, no escape. Yet somehow, Sophie had left. I turned toward Adrian, desperate. Tell me I'm not crazy, please. He looked at me and whispered, I remember her. Relief crashed through me. Thank God. But then his expression changed, confusion, fear. He blinked and slowly said, Wait. A pause. Did she have black hair? My heart stopped. No, no, not again. He pressed his fingers against his temples, trying to remember, trying to hold on, but the details slipped away. Right in front of me, like sand through open hands, tears filled my eyes. Sophie. I whispered her name over and over as though repetition alone could save her. Sophie, Sophie Bennet, 24, black hair, green coat, waiting for someone. Please, please don't disappear. The grandfather clock in the lobby struck midnight. 1, 2, 3. The sound echoed through the building, and then, for the first time, it continued. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9, 10, 11, 12, silence, and finally a 13th chime. The entire hotel shook, every light flickered, and somewhere above us, directly above the chandelier, footsteps began. Heavy, slow, deliberate, walking across a floor that did not exist. Margaret stood immediately, her book fell to the ground. For the first time since I'd arrived, She looked terrified. "No." Adrian turned pale. "What is it?" Margaret whispered. "She's bringing someone down." The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then a new sound, not crying, not singing, an elevator bell, soft, mechanical, impossible. Ding. We all turned. At the far end of the lobby, a pair of old metal elevator doors slowly opened. Doors I had never seen before. Above them, a glowing number. 3. Chapter 7. The Key to Room 307. The elevator doors stood open, ancient, rust-covered, silent. I had walked through the lobby dozens of times since arriving at Blackwood. That elevator had never been there, never. Yet now it existed as naturally as the reception desk, as naturally as the fireplace, as naturally as the storm outside. Above the doors, a single brass number glowed. 3. Nobody moved, nobody breathed. Margaret was the first to speak. Her voice trembled. "Back away." Adrian didn't listen. He stared at the opening as though seeing a ghost. "My father used to talk about this." I turned toward him. "What do you mean?" He swallowed. "He called it the midnight elevator." The grandfather clock stopped ticking. The silence that followed was unbearable. Margaret stepped forward. "No one enters." Adrian laughed, a short, exhausted laugh. "After 30 years?" His eyes remained fixed on the darkness inside the elevator. "I think I'm done listening." The old woman looked at him with genuine fear. "You don't understand." "No," Adrian answered quietly. "You made sure nobody ever understood." The air inside the lobby grew colder. I could see my breath. The elevator remained open, waiting, patient, as though it knew exactly who it wanted, and then a soft melody drifted downward, the same lullaby, the same voice, gentle, heartbroken, calling from somewhere above or below. I couldn't tell any more. Margaret closed her eyes. "She's awake." My pulse quickened. "Who is she?" Nobody answered. The elevator bell rang once more. Ding. And for reasons I still cannot explain, I took a step forward. Immediately, the music stopped, the temperature dropped, and inside the darkness of the elevator, a single object appeared, resting on the floor, a key, old brass, attached to a faded leather tag, 3 numbers engraved upon it. 307. My heart stopped. No, the room existed. It had always existed. Margaret rushed forward. No. But Adrian reached it first. He bent down, picked up the key, and for the first time since meeting him, his hands shook. "It's real." His voice cracked. "Oh God, it's actually real." I approached carefully. The brass felt ancient, worn smooth by countless fingers, as though hundreds of people had held it before me and none had returned. Margaret's face had become pale. "You must put it back." Adrian looked at her. "Why?" "Because she wants you to find her." Silence. The wind outside howled against the windows. Margaret continued. "And nobody who finds her." She stopped, unable to finish. I stepped closer. "What happened to Eleanor Blackwood?" The old woman looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw grief, decades of grief. "I tried to save her." My breath caught. The lobby disappeared. Everything narrowed to those words. "She came here in 1958. Margaret's voice became distant, like someone remembering a nightmare. She heard the crying, the footsteps, the singing, just like you. The key felt heavier in Adrian's hand. Margaret continued. "She believed there was a woman trapped inside room 307. A pause. And maybe there was. The fire suddenly died. Darkness spread across the room. Only candlelight remained. One night, Margaret whispered, she found the key. Adrian stared at the brass tag. 307, the same key, the same room, the same story. What happened after that? I asked. The old woman didn't answer immediately. Instead, she picked up her book, opened it, and for the first time turned a page. Dozens of photographs fell onto the floor. People, men, women, families, employees, children, all with names written beneath them. Most of the names had been crossed out, erased, forgotten. My stomach twisted. Who are these people? Margaret looked down. Everyone Blackwood took. The world seemed to stop. The old man, his wife, Sophie. My mind raced. Were they here, somewhere, still alive, still waiting? Adrian slowly knelt, picking up one photograph after another. Then he froze. A young man, brown hair, police uniform, smiling. The name beneath it read Daniel Cole. Daniel. Adrian stopped breathing. My father. Tears filled his eyes. He was real. The sentence shattered me. Not he is my father. Not I miss him. But he was real, as though even that certainty had been slipping away. Margaret closed the book. I kept the photographs so someone would remember. Silence. Adrian held the picture against his chest. For several moments nobody spoke. Then the elevator doors slammed shut. The entire hotel shook. Candles extinguished. Darkness swallowed everything. And from somewhere above us, footsteps, dozens of them, not one person, many, walking together slowly, deliberately, toward us. The sound filled the entire building, every corridor, every wall, every ceiling. Adrian grabbed my arm. We have to leave. Where? His eyes found mine. The basement. I blinked. What? My father left something there. Margaret immediately shook her head. No. Adrian stood. Enough. 30 years of fear. 30 years of silence. I'm done. He held up the photograph. My father deserves better. The footsteps continued, closer now, and among them, I heard crying. Not one voice. Many. Men, women, children, lonely, forgotten, waiting. The hairs on my neck rose because hidden within the chorus. One voice spoke clearly, softly, directly to me. Eleanor. I closed my eyes. No. The whisper came again, more gentle this time. We found the key. My blood turned to ice. Not I. We. The voices were multiplying, growing stronger, remembering, and somewhere deep inside myself, a memory that wasn't mine began to surface. A hotel corridor, snow outside, a brass key in my hand, and a promise made 70 years ago. I opened my eyes. The world swayed. The photograph of Eleanor Blackwood flashed through my mind. Her face, my face, the same eyes, the same sadness, and suddenly I knew something with absolute certainty. I had been here before, not as Ellie Hayes, not as a journalist, but as someone else, someone who never left. The grandfather clock struck 2:17 a.m. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then the elevator bell rang once more. Ding! The metal doors slowly opened again. This time, the glowing number above them no longer displayed 3. It displayed 307. Chapter 8. The Hidden Floor. The elevator doors remained open. 307. No lights flickered. No mechanical sounds echoed from within. Just darkness. Endless, patient darkness. Adrian stared at the number above the entrance. His breathing had become uneven. My father wrote about this, he whispered. I looked at him. What did he say? He swallowed. That the elevator only appears when someone is finally ready to remember. The words sent a chill through my body. Margaret stepped forward immediately. No one is going inside. Her voice carried genuine fear, not authority. Fear. Adrian laughed softly. And if we don't? Silence. Margaret looked away. Then Blackwood keeps waiting. The answer only made things worse. I took a cautious step toward the elevator. Cold air poured from the darkness within. Not winter cold, something older, like opening a door to a forgotten cellar that had remained sealed for generations. Then, a soft voice. Eleanor. My entire body froze. The voice came from inside. Gentle, lonely, patient, waiting. Adrian grabbed my wrist. Don't answer. I nodded. But deep inside, something wanted to. Something inside me recognized that voice. Not from this life, not from memory, but from somewhere deeper. A promise, an unfinished conversation, a goodbye that never happened. Margaret closed her eyes. She's becoming stronger. I looked at her. Who is she? The old woman remained silent for a long time. Then she finally spoke. Eleanor Blackwood wasn't the first. The air left my lungs. What? There were others before her. Adrian slowly turned. What do you mean? Margaret opened her book. The ancient leather cover creaked. Inside, more photographs. Dozens. Hundreds. Women. Different decades. Different clothes. Different faces. Yet all of them shared something impossible. They looked alike. Not identical, but similar. The same eyes. The same expression. The same sadness. My stomach twisted. At the bottom of each photograph, a date. 1891, 1892, 1893, 1894, 1895. And beneath Eleanor Blackwood's picture, 2027. My name. Ellie Hayes. I stumbled backward. No. 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 Margaret looked genuinely heartbroken. I prayed I was wrong. Adrian stared at the page. Why her? Margaret closed the book. Because Blackwood remembers. The silence that followed felt suffocating. Outside, the storm battered the windows. Inside, time itself seemed to stop. Then, the elevator bell rang. Ding! The doors began closing. Instinctively, I rushed forward, and just before they shut, I saw something inside. A hallway. Long. Elegant. Covered in red carpet. Golden chandeliers. Bright lights. Completely different from the decaying hotel around us. The Blackwood Grand Hotel, brand new. Alive. And at the end of that hallway, a woman stood waiting. My face. My eyes. My voice. Eleanor Blackwood. The doors slammed shut. Darkness returned. The number above the elevator vanished. Gone. As though it had never existed. Nobody spoke. Adrian finally exhaled. We're running out of time. Margaret nodded. For the first time, she agreed. The hidden floor is opening. My heart pounded. The third floor. She looked directly at me. There was always a third floor. The sentence echoed through the lobby. Everything I thought I understood collapsed. Adrian took a step closer. Then why hide it? Margaret closed her eyes. Because room 307 was never supposed to exist. The fireplace suddenly erupted. Flames shot upward. The entire hotel trembled. A deep rumble echoed beneath our feet. Not thunder, not the storm. Something below us. Moving, awakening. The chandeliers swayed. Dust fell from the ceiling. And then, a loud metallic sound. Clang! Everyone turned. Near the reception desk, an old maintenance cabinet had fallen open. Inside, rolled blueprints, ancient, yellowed with age. Adrian rushed toward them. I followed. My hands trembled as we spread the papers across the floor. Blackwood Grand Hotel. Original construction plans. 1951. Floor 1. Floor 2. Floor 4. Floor 5. Then, a folded section hidden between the pages. Marked in red ink. Floor 3. The hidden floor. My pulse stopped. It existed. It had always existed. 30 guest rooms. A ballroom. A chapel. Storage facilities. And, at the far western wing, Room 307. Circled repeatedly. The ink around it looked different, fresher, as though someone had returned years later and marked it again. Beneath the circle, handwritten words, "Do not seal the door." Adrian's face lost all colour. My father wrote this. The handwriting matched the photograph he carried. Daniel Cole, head of security, missing. 1987. I looked closer. Another note sat beneath it, smaller, more desperate. If you find this, the room is not above you, it is below. The world went silent. I blinked, read it again. Below, not above. My mind raced. The footsteps, the crying, the voices, the basement, the breathing beneath the concrete, the tape recorder. The hidden floor wasn't somewhere higher. It was underneath Blackwood. Buried, forgotten, covered. Margaret slowly sat down, exhausted. We sealed it after Eleanor disappeared. I turned immediately. You sealed people inside. Tears appeared in her eyes. We thought it would stop. The sentence hung in the air. Thought. Past tense. Meaning. It didn't. Adrian stood. Determination replacing fear. We need to open it. Margaret looked horrified. No. My father is down there. No. People are still there. No. Her scream echoed through the hotel. For the first time, the calm, composed Margaret Holloway was gone. Only an old woman remained, broken by decades of regret. You don't understand. Her voice trembled. Room 307 isn't a room. Silence. The storm outside seemed to pause. The fire crackled softly. Margaret whispered, "It's where forgotten people go." My blood turned cold. The old man, his wife, Sophie, Daniel Cole, Eleanor Blackwood, everyone, not dead, forgotten, existing somewhere beyond memory itself, and if memories disappeared, so did they. The realisation made me sick. Then, a soft knock, 3 times. Everyone froze. Knock, knock, knock. Not the front door, not the windows. From underneath the floorboards, a woman began crying. Close, so close. And then, for the first time, I heard Sophie's voice, weak, distant, terrified. Ellie! Tears filled my eyes immediately. No! No! Sophie! The crying stopped. A pause. Then her voice returned. Please remember me. Adrian turned pale. Margaret covered her mouth. And somewhere beneath Blackwood Grand Hotel, an elevator bell rang. Ding! This time, directly below our feet. Chapter 9. What happened 10 years ago. Sophie's voice came from beneath the floor, weak, distant, impossible. Ellie? The sound barely existed, like a memory fighting against oblivion. I dropped to my knees. Sophie! No answer, only static. The wooden floor beneath us trembled softly. Margaret turned away immediately. Tears rolled down her face. Adrian stood perfectly still, because we all understood the same terrifying truth. She was still alive. Somehow, Sophie Bennett still existed, trapped somewhere below Blackwood, waiting to be remembered. The elevator bell rang again. Ding! This time, no one moved. No one wanted to. The sound came directly from underneath the lobby, from the hidden floor, from the place that wasn't supposed to exist. Adrian broke the silence. We open it tonight. Margaret looked at him with horror. If you do that, there will be no turning back. He held his father's photograph tightly. I turned back 30 years ago. A long pause. I'm not doing it again. The old woman lowered her head. Exhaustion filled every line on her face. Then, for the first time, she finally told us the truth. It began 10 years ago. The fire crackled softly. The storm continued outside. Margaret spoke without looking at either of us. In the winter of 2017, There were 8 guests in the hotel. I listened carefully. Among all the mysteries, this was the first real answer. One of them was a young schoolteacher. Her name was Clara Monroe. Adrian frowned. I've never heard that name. Margaret nodded. Nobody has. The sentence made my skin crawl. Why? She closed her eyes. Because Blackwood took her. Silence. At first, it was exactly the same. The footsteps, the crying, the voice calling her name. I felt cold. The pattern. It was always the same. Different people. Different decades. Same nightmare. Margaret continued. Clara became obsessed with room 307. She believed someone needed help. And one night, her hands began trembling. She found the key. The room fell silent. I already knew what came next, or thought I did, but I was wrong. She opened the door. A pause. And she came back. Adrian looked up immediately. What? Margaret nodded. She returned. My heart skipped. Someone survived. Someone actually escaped. The old woman swallowed. Physically. The word landed heavily. She returned to the hotel. But something inside her remained below. The fire suddenly popped, sending sparks into the air. Margaret continued. She stopped recognising people. Forgot her own family. Forgot her childhood. Forgot her own reflection. I couldn't breathe. 1 week later, Margaret whispered, she disappeared. No body, no evidence, nothing, only absence. Adrian sat down slowly. So that's why you sealed everything. Margaret nodded. We believed the room needed memories. I frowned. What does that mean? The old woman looked directly at me. It feeds on remembrance. Silence. The more people forget someone, the stronger room 307 becomes. The realization hit me all at once. The old man's wife. Sophie, Daniel Cole, Eleanor, every forgotten person. They weren't being erased. Their memories were being consumed, stored, collected, preserved somewhere beyond reality. And Blackwood itself was built on top of that place. I felt sick. Adrian suddenly stood. My father disappeared in 1987. Margaret nodded. Yes. He went searching for Eleanor. Silence. He believed he could bring her back. The photograph in his hand shook. Did he fail? Margaret looked away. I don't know. That answer angered him. You were here. How do you not know? The old woman remained quiet. Then she reached into her coat and removed a small leather notebook, worn, old. The cover read, Daniel Cole. Adrian froze. My father's journal. Margaret handed it to him. He left it behind. Adrian carefully opened the first page. His breathing stopped. Tears immediately filled his eyes. That's his handwriting. I moved closer. Most pages contained ordinary notes, maintenance reports, guest names, weather observations, until the final entries. The handwriting changed, messier, more desperate, as though written by someone fighting against memory itself. Entry 1. I keep hearing Eleanor singing. Entry 2. There are more people below than above. Entry 3. I met a little girl in room 307. She knew my name. Entry 4. If I forget Adrian, someone must tell him I loved him. The room became completely silent. Adrian broke. Years, decades, an entire lifetime of uncertainty reduced to a single sentence. If I forget Adrian, someone must tell him I loved him. Tears streamed down his face. I looked away, giving him the dignity of grief. Then, the final page, written with shaking hands, the ink nearly unreadable. Do not trust the elevator. The 3rd floor is not where the room is. The room moves. My heart stopped. The room moves. Impossible. Unless it wasn't a room at all. The clock struck midnight. Once, twice, 3 times, the storm outside suddenly weakened. An unnatural calm settled over Blackwood. The silence felt wrong, as though the world itself had paused, waiting. Then, a loud metallic sound echoed beneath us. The elevator, moving, slowly, ascending. Everyone heard it. The cables groaned, ancient machinery awakening after decades of sleep. Adrian closed his father's journal. It's time. Margaret stood. No. He looked at her. I have to know. She shook her head. If you go down there, I'm already down there. The sentence stunned all of us. He touched his chest. My memories. My father. My entire life. They've always been there. I understood. Blackwood hadn't only taken people, it had taken parts of those left behind. The forgetting had already begun years ago. The elevator stopped. Directly beneath the lobby. Ding. A hidden section of floor slowly slid open. Dust rose into the air, and there, for the first time, we saw it. An elevator platform, descending into darkness, into the hidden floor, into whatever remained of room 307. The doors stood open, waiting inside. Only one thing existed, a woman standing perfectly still, long dark hair, winter coat, pale skin, my face, Eleanor Blackwood. She looked directly at me and smiled sadly. Then she spoke, not aloud, not with sound, but somehow I heard her, clear as day. Ellie, a pause. I've been waiting for 10 years. And suddenly, I realised something horrifying. She wasn't talking about herself, she was talking about me, the moment I lost my father in the snow, the moment Blackwood first learned my name, the moment this story truly began. Chapter 10. The Girl in Room 307. Eleanor Blackwood smiled, softly, sadly. The elevator doors remained open beneath the lobby floor. Nobody moved, nobody breathed. The storm outside had gone completely silent, as though the entire world had stopped to listen. I've been waiting for 10 years, her voice echoed inside my mind, not through sound, through memory. Adrian stepped forward. What does she mean? But I already knew. Somewhere deep inside me, I already knew. I looked at Eleanor, and for the first time I remembered snow, headlights, a road buried beneath winter, my father's hands gripping the steering wheel, the sound of our car stopping. Then, footsteps, outside, slow, measured, walking through impossible snow. My father telling me to stay inside, promising he would only be gone for a minute, 1 minute. That was all. He stepped into the storm and never returned. For 20 years, I believed he disappeared. I believed he died. But now, I understood. Blackwood had called him, and when he refused, it called me instead. Waiting, patiently, for me to grow older, for me to come willingly, for me to remember. Tears filled my eyes. Oh, God! Margaret lowered her head. I prayed you would never come here. I looked at her. You knew. The old woman nodded. Your father came to Blackwood once. The world stopped. What? He never entered the hotel. Her voice trembled. But she spoke to him. A pause. He ran. The silence became unbearable. He saved you. My knees nearly gave out. My father hadn't abandoned me. He had protected me, even at the cost of being forgotten. Adrian stood motionless. His own father's photograph clutched tightly against his chest. We've all been losing people for decades. Margaret nodded. Yes, because nobody remembered them. The hidden elevator hummed softly. Waiting. Patient. Eleanor looked directly at me and extended her hand. The same hand from the photograph, the same hand from my dreams. Please, not fear, not anger, only loneliness, pure loneliness. Please don't leave us alone. And suddenly, everything became clear. Room 307 wasn't evil, it wasn't hunting people, it wasn't killing anyone, it was collecting the forgotten, the abandoned, the memories nobody carried anymore, a place created by grief itself, a sanctuary that had become a prison. People disappeared because the world stopped remembering them, and once memory faded, the room became the only place left for them to exist. The old man, his wife, Sophie, Daniel Cole, Eleanor, all still there, waiting, hoping, needing someone to remember. Adrian stepped beside me. My father is down there. Yes, Margaret whispered. He wiped tears from his face. Then I'm going. The old woman closed her eyes. If you enter, you may never leave. Adrian smiled, a broken, exhausted smile. I left him alone for 30 years. A pause. I'm done doing that. I understood. Completely. I looked at Eleanor, then at the darkness below, and made my decision. I'm coming too. Margaret immediately shook her head. No. Ellie. I remember Sophie. Tears rolled down my cheeks. I remember her black hair, her green coat, her teacup. I remember she was waiting for someone. My voice cracked. And if I leave now... The realization hurt. I'll forget. Silence, the kind of silence reserved for impossible choices. Then Margaret did something unexpected. She opened her book, removed every photograph, and handed them to me. Take them. I stared. What? Memory is the only thing stronger than room 307. The old woman smiled sadly. As long as someone remembers, they can come home. The truth finally revealed itself. Not a weapon, not a ritual. Memory, love, names, stories. That was how people survived. Adrian stepped into the elevator. The lights inside flickered warmly, golden, like sunlight trapped underground. I followed. The doors remained open. Eleanor waited at the bottom, no longer frightening, only lonely. Margaret remained above, watching, for the first time in decades, without fear. The elevator descended, slowly, the lobby disappeared, then the basement, then darkness, endless darkness, until light, soft jazz music drifted through the air, the doors opened, and my breath stopped. The third floor, it existed, beautiful, untouched, alive, crystal chandeliers, fresh flowers, guests walking through elegant corridors, people who should have been gone, people history had forgotten, yet here they remained, waiting, remembering each other. Sophie stood near a window, her eyes widened. Ellie! I ran to her, embraced her, and she began crying. I thought everyone forgot. I held her tightly. Not me. Behind us, an older man approached Adrian, police uniform, gentle smile. Daniel Cole. Adrian couldn't. Gentle smile. Daniel Cole. Adrian couldn't speak, neither could his father. They simply embraced 30 years of absence, erased in a single moment of remembrance. And at the end of the corridor, Eleanor waited, alone. I walked toward her, slowly, carefully. She looked exactly like me, yet not like me at all. She carried decades of loneliness in her eyes. Why me? I whispered. She smiled. Because you listened. The answer felt devastatingly simple. All these years. She looked around the beautiful hallway. They stopped remembering. A pause. But I remembered everyone. Tears formed in her eyes, and eventually, her voice broke. I became alone. I understood. She wasn't a monster. She was a caretaker, the final witness, the last person carrying memories that the world abandoned. The girl in room 307, not a prisoner, a guardian. I took her hands, warm, human, real. You don't have to do this anymore. Silence. The music continued softly. People laughed in distant rooms. Memories refusing to die. Eleanor looked at me. Will you remember us? I thought of my father, of Sophie, of Daniel, of the old man and his wife. of every photograph Margaret protected, and I answered, always. The entire floor trembled, not violently, gently, like a long exhale. The chandeliers glowed brighter, the walls shimmered, and for the first time, sunlight appeared beyond the windows. Impossible sunlight. Golden. Warm. Eleanor smiled. A genuine smile. Perhaps her first in 70 years. Then we're free. The corridor slowly dissolved into light. Not destruction. Release. The memories no longer needed a prison, because someone carried them. Someone remembered. I closed my eyes and thought of every name, every face, every story, refusing to let them vanish. When I opened my eyes, I stood in the hotel lobby. Morning sunlight poured through the windows. The storm had ended. Completely. Birds sang outside. Fresh snow covered the mountains. Peaceful. Beautiful. Adrian sat near the fireplace. Awake. Alive. The photograph of his father remained in his hands. But now, he smiled. Margaret stood behind the desk. Her ancient book lay closed. Empty. No photographs remained inside. No crossed-out names. Nothing. She looked lighter, as though decades had been lifted from her shoulders. Sophie entered from the dining room, carrying tea. Green coat. Black hair. Exactly as I remembered. Exactly as she deserved. Nobody questioned her presence. Nobody acted surprised, because she had never been forgotten. Outside, the road crews had arrived. The mountain pass reopened. Civilization returned. Blackwood Grand Hotel would still close in 2 weeks. But something fundamental had changed. The loneliness was gone. Before leaving, I returned to the library, placed a new photograph inside the archives. On the back, I wrote, Eleanor Blackwood, Daniel Cole, Sophie Bennett, and everyone else the world nearly forgot. Remember them. That is how they survive. Years later, people still ask about my final podcast episode, the one I never released. The recordings remain locked away. Some stories don't belong to audiences. Some memories are responsibilities. And every winter, when snow begins to fall, I light a candle. I speak their names, one by one, so they never have to wait in room 307 again. Because the truth is this, the most terrifying thing in the world isn't death. It isn't darkness. It isn't ghosts. It's being forgotten. And the greatest act of love, the greatest act of defiance, is simply remembering. The girl in room 307 taught me that. And I will remember her. Always. The end.